The Sweet Sound of Success show is brought to you by the Mentor Studio. The Mentor Studio is an exclusive mentoring and training program for social influencers, business owners, entrepreneurs, coaches, and startups, bringing personal development to the underserved around the world. And brought to you by Success Strategists, simple strategies that work to develop your business with flow and ease using proven strategies and the right tactics. This is the Sweet Sound of Success with Sue Wilhite, Profit Attraction Master. Robert Butwin has been an entrepreneur for over 40 years, beginning with his family-owned business, Butwin Sportswear. He became responsible for events and marketing for the Oz Nightclub in Minnesota, then went into a direct marketing company where he helped them ship out over 65 million cassette tapes. He's the author of the best-selling book, Street Smart Networking, a no-nonsense guide to creating the most richly rewarding lifestyle one can possibly imagine. He's recorded a CD called Speak and Prosper and has contributed to more magazines than we can count. He loves to help other entrepreneurs, and he's traveled over 2 million air miles sharing his insights to help people accelerate their success. Locally, he is actively involved in networking groups and online networking groups and multiple chambers of commerce. Currently, he's CMO of globalinboundclosers.com. Welcome, Robert Butwin. Thank you for joining me.
You know, Sue, I love to be here with you because you are such a influence and a positive so positive in my life. I just love our friendship and our relationship.
Well, yes, and I've got to say that you've been an influence on my life, and I'm so grateful that you are one of the sponsors of our program. So finally getting you on, our schedules managed to match this interview. So for my viewers and listeners who are not familiar with the format of this show, this is the hero's journey for the entrepreneur's soul. And what I do in the interview is I focus on 5 parts of the hero's journey, first produced by Joseph Campbell. And the 5 parts that we're going to talk about with Robert, and boy, let me tell you, this is going to be a fun story, are the ordinary beginning, the call to action, the big hairy monsters that we all get to play with as entrepreneurs. And sometimes those two are a little bit conflated. They're kind of the same thing. The allies, guides, and mentors, because nobody can do it by themselves, no matter what anybody says or what the media tries to tell you. And then finally, it's called the journey home, and it has to do with the way that people view you as an entrepreneur. Some people are very supportive. Some people say they're supportive and think you're crazy. And some people just flat out go, when are you going to get a real job? So we'll talk about all of that. So Robert, tell us about your ordinary beginning.
Well, my ordinary beginning, because I was the 3rd generation oldest son in our family business. We started the high school award cheerleading jacket business. So I always expected to someday be running that company. I saw it as a vehicle to really take it from where it was, which is a successful company, to the next level. Mm-hmm. The problem was there was too much family in our family business, and it was my family. I had certain cousins that, because they're part of the family, expected a handout, and they weren't necessarily productive. And my grandmother, who actually was the major person behind it. My dad was the president, but she wanted to make sure all her grandkids were making approximately the same money. And to me, there was something wrong with that equation. So I started to take a look at what could I do to figure out something different that would allow me to create the kind of career that I really wanted to create. So that was my beginning. And so as I was looking for a way out, and you mentioned about part of my background, the Oz Nightclub, and I used to like to go to bars. This obviously was before I got married, a single, normal guy. And so I was going to bars, and it was a very interesting story how it actually happened. I was a regular customer at the Oz, and they just went through a transition, and they had their first promotion. And because as a regular customer, they would allow me to stay afterwards. And so they were bragging or thinking how great their promotion was. And so me, I sort of like put my foot in my mouth. And I says, it wasn't that great, guys. So they challenged me to actually see if I could do it better. And I says, no problem, I'll be happy to do it. And they asked me if I'd put my money where my mouth was. And I used to gamble, so I never really would back down from a bet. And so ultimately I said, sure, no problem. And that created the bet. And ultimately the bet was for like $3,500. This is back in the 81, 82, which, I was young, money meant a lot. But if I were going to make a bet, I was going to make sure I won. So I created certain parameters. So we got clarity around it. And 2 weeks before the deadline of the bet, I had already won the bet. So and ultimately that's how I ended up running the nightclub. As I worked my job, still looking for how could I land in something that I really was passionate about, that I saw long-term. And anyhow, that's where my journey started.
Yeah. Wow. That is a great story. I don't think very many entrepreneurs would have taken on that bet of doing that. So good for you. So was your call to action the combination of the nightclub promotion and seeing that you could actually do that, or your grandmother, or
no, my call to action is because I was frustrated. And I was searching around for different things. And this was back to, to date it, it was back when we had cassette tapes. For those of you that might be listening that don't understand what cassette tapes were, but I came across a cassette tape called No Limit Person by Wayne Dyer. Yeah. And so ultimately it talked about how we all create limits. And I started to take started to take a look at what was going on in my life. And I came to the realization that everything that happened, no matter what it was happening, I was responsible for that. And see, once you take responsibility for what is, you can take it for what will be. But unfortunately, most people are in a state of denial. And I love the acronym of denial. Don't even notice I am lying. And you're lying to yourself by not taking responsibility. So then I reflected back to how I got here. And I took a look at when I went through college, and I really took the short course, meaning I got a degree and I went to classes, but I would, like when I was going to classes, I'd find somebody that was a good note taker, have them take notes. And I went on and had fun, because I believe in having fun. So, that's one thing that's carried me virtually all the way through. So ultimately, yes, I got the degree, but I didn't get the education. So now I had to make up for lost time. So I came across, when I came across the cassette tape series, I came to the realization that if I started to figure out how I could gain the insights based on what some of my, at that point, it was my indirect mentor until I found a direct mentor. So I started listening to different things, people like Jim Rohn, Dr. Robert Anthony. I could go on and on about how I had to figure out how I could make the changes so that I could create what I really wanted to create for my life. And so that's where my real hero's journey started, or the call to action.
Yeah. And recognizing that it was your responsibility to change you.
Yes.
To whatever it was that was going on in your life was because of you.
Yeah. Well, Jim Rohn said, for things to change, I needed to change.
Exactly.
And the way I needed to change is, I started to search out that I could figure out how to be more effective, how I could become a better me, so that I could create the things around me that would allow me to develop the success in everything that's happened thereafter.
Exactly. Exactly. So you became extremely successful. I mean, once you got those concepts in your head,
Yes.
you really, I mean, you took a rocket up there. But what were some of the challenges that you ran into? I call them the big hairy monsters. What were some of the challenges that you ran into along the way?
You know, one of the biggest challenges is, you know, and it goes back to Dr. Robert Anthony. He talked about we all have certain lessons to learn in life, and until we learn that lesson, life will continually trip you up in those lessons. And one of my big hairy monster was depending on other people. You know, because I've got a heart. I mean, a very significant heart, and I always want to help people, and that will always change. But I came to realize you've got to set your limits. You've got to have clarity in the communication, because my hairy monster was allowing myself to continually allowing people to take advantage of me.
Right.
Is the easiest way to say it.
Right.
And so that to me was the biggest hairy one. And, you know, finally, it's like, how many times do you put your hand on a hot stove before you learn?
Right. Right.
I mean, I'm a slow learner in certain aspects. In other things, I pick it up right away. But that was my biggest hairy monster that I had to figure out, because I knew that if things were going to change, I needed to make the changes. So
Right. Right. Well, and other people have said it's about saying yes one too many times.
yes, exactly.
You know, there's only so many times you could say yes before either you become exhausted, burned out, or, as you said, taken advantage of,
Yeah.
because you're just saying yes indiscriminately. Now, for some people, that's an adventure, and I think they made a movie out of that. And sometimes you got to say no.
Yes, you learn that, you know, you start
Creating
moving
those.
the responsibility back to the other person. It's like, I'm not a bank. You know, I mean, I remember one time, and this was many years ago, a guy came to me and he says, I would like you to grant me $40,000 with no expectation to ever pay it back. And this is when 40,000 was probably like worth 140,000 back when he asked me that. And
Right.
you know, at that time I said no, but I could also give you many more times where I said yes. Like one of my friends, and I can't name his name because he's a well-known person in the marketplace, but he was going through a problem with the IRS, and I ended up loaning him like 30-some thousand dollars. And you know, it's been 12 years later and I've still never gotten that back. So I mean, that's just one example. There's
Right.
other smaller examples, but yes.
Right. Right. Exactly. And that is a big hairy monster. Saying, you know, creating boundaries is a huge thing for many entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
You know, it's a big one. It's a big one. Absolutely. So you've mentioned some of your mentors: Wayne Dyer, Dr. Robert Anthony, Jim Rohn. Who were some of your other less well-known mentors?
Well, my first direct mentor, those were indirect mentors. Yes, no, I actually was on stage at an event one time with Wayne Dyer, 3 or 4 times with Jim Rohn. You know, first of all, to me, in a couple months, a couple of my other mentors were Doris Wood. And one of the things that she always used to say is, experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. And so I took a look at every experience that I had. Rather than validating my lack, I looked at it as a stepping stone. Another key mentor of mine was a gentleman by the name of Robert Nadiak. And I met him, and he was in network marketing at the time, and he was making the kind of money I wanted to make. But one of the key things that he used to continually say, attitude of gratitude. Be grateful for where you are as you're going to where you deserve to be. Now, you know, since that point in time, I've got many other mentors. You know, I look at it more as mastermind or strategic alliances. Like one of the ones I can think of, you know, well, first of all, I look at you as a mentor, the things you've taught me. I take a look at James Feldman is another person who you and I introduced you to, who wrote the book Shift Happens. Because I used to talk about out of the box. You got to think out of the box, and he says, no, you need to think in the box. Why? You need to get in the box using 3D thinking, meaning you need to understand the depth of the problem, you need to understand the distance to the solution, and the determination that you have to get to that solution. So, but James is besides a phenomenal human being, he's just one of the wisest guys that I met. Is another mentor. But I've got lots of different mentors that I could continually go on and on. I mean, Simon Sinek is another mentor, even though I've never met him. I love the fact of begin with, understand your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? And
the point is, and the reason that I mention mentors is, here you are, Robert, you're incredibly successful. You have had so many amazing successes in your life, but you didn't do it in a vacuum.
No.
You didn't do it because you sat there and, just kind of did it all by yourself. You did it following the advice and guidance and assistance and coaching, and you took it in and you used it.
Yeah.
That was that's the other half of, being a good.
That's part of it. It's like the other part of it is when I look at relationships, it's the synergy of working with other people. It's being of value to them and they're of value to you. It's that, I like to look at synergy as not 1 + 1 = 2, but it's equals 111 or more.
Yes.
It's like, by being of value to other people. And again, we've all got things to share. I've learned the more that you give, that's probably the secret to the law of attraction. The actions you need to do is be of value and give freely without expectations. I mean, don't come to people with what I call, transaction breath, or, where people can see right through you. All you want to do is extract money from them.
Yes.
Oh, another mentor is Robert Cialdini. Tony Polici is two other mentors that are, people that I would consider as mentors of mine. Tony has been a 25-year friend, one of my copywriters. Doug Plank, played for the NFL. I just got off the phone with him. Phenomenal, just a super smart guy, phenomenal person, and we mentor one another.
Right. Oh boy, you want to talk about determination. I mean, there's a reason that they've enshrined his number.
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely.
But all these guys have got phenomenal character. They're good people, and we help one another. And that's, I love the acronym of TEAM. Together, everybody achieves miracles.
Yes. And so for those people who are not necessarily mentors or allies, how do you deal with folks who are around you who, especially at the beginning when you were starting your journey, how did you deal with folks who doubted you or didn't, as I said, they think you're crazy, or, when are you going to get a real job?
I didn't pay attention to them. I did, I mean, that's their opinion. I knew, I understood my intention. My intention was to be successful. I had the attitude, nothing's going to stop me. I was going to figure it out no matter what. So the people that doubted me, I didn't pay attention to them. I mean, I knew based on that other people could do it, so could I, because again, I poured all that different things into my mind, the mindset. I had that kind of mindset that I developed. I wasn't necessarily born with it, but I had to make the shifts and adjustments so that I could create the kind of mindset that I knew that I was going to be successful. I took a look at my past wins and I magnified them. I took a look at the things that didn't work out and I discarded them.
Right. So it's just like training.
Yep.
Just it's the same thing. You reward success and you not so much ignore failure, because ignoring failure just means it's going to happen again. But you discard, I suppose is the better word. Discard.
Here's an acronym for failure that I think you'll like. for all I've learned. I took a look at, because to me, there is no fail. I took a look at that as just again, another experience. What was I supposed to learn from that?
Right.
And I was, again, it was just a step in my evolution to become more successful.
Right. And you absolutely did.
Yeah.
So bonus question, Robert.
Sure.
Surprise bonus question for this round.
I love surprises.
So if you could wake up every day and do one thing that you have in your toolbox that just, oh boy, I get to do this every single day, what would that be? If a client were to approach you and to say, hey, this is what I want to do, and you'd go, oh yes, thank you, this is perfect, what would that be?
Everything that I'm doing, there's another, there's a book that I came across, or a CD, you can get it on YouTube for free, called The Big Leap, Your State of Genius. And my state of genius is connecting with people, being of value to people. So it's like, I take a look at who can I meet today that I can bring value to, because I know that if I can be of value to them, and I take a look at myself as a professional networker and a strategist. And one of the things I've learned as a professional networker is networking sort of like opening a bank account, meaning the fact that you need to make deposits before you can make withdrawals. And so, because I'm looking to create long-term relationships, I look at everything long-term. I don't think about tomorrow. Because of the success, I don't have to worry about money. So I'm looking at long-term relationships. So I'm thinking about who can I meet that I can make a difference in, or who do I already know that I can make a difference in? So you sort of balance between meeting somebody new and being of value to the people already in your network. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that just really sums you up, Robert, because I know from my own personal experience, and I know from talking to other people that you've helped along the way, that your first thought is, how can I help?
Yep.
And who can I connect you with that's going to make a difference? How can I be like you said, how can I be of value? So it's absolutely fabulous that is the mindset that you wake up in the morning with. I think it's extraordinary. Mm-hmm. Which is sad that it's extraordinary. It should be an ordinary thing. People, this is my opinion, but I think everybody should wake up and go, how can I be of value to somebody else today?
Yep. Or who am I going to meet today that I might be of value to?
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you so much, Robert, for being a guest on my show. Thank you for taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule of helping other people and being of value. So again, thank you. I appreciate you so much.
Super. And I appreciate you. And that's why we get along so well together.
Yeah. And thank you to my viewers and listeners of the Sweet Sound of Success. What are your dreams for your business? You know what drives me crazy? Really smart business owners denying their talents because they've been taught it has to be hard, because they've been taught that they don't deserve their gifts, that they're not worth anything. They've been taught that their gender means they can't express their genius. I'm Sue Wilhite, and I want you to have access to your genius. I want you to go out and rock the world with your genius. So I created the Call to Action coaching program. It's all about getting to the heart of you and what you've got to share with the world to make a profitable business that thrives and allows you to make a difference in the world. Click the link to sign up for the Call to Action coaching program today. Don't let your genius go unnoticed.